Welcome to another episode of Shadows of the Tarot. It had been months since they had been together. These months had flown past so quickly. For the most part, Rita was enjoying her time with Sam, but then he started focusing on her feet more. It was getting to the point where it was almost creepy, and she still had an unsettling feeling in the house. What was it that made her feel this way? She was not finding the information elsewhere, so she continued pushing it to the back of her mind. She had intended to have another card read to try to gain some more information, so she booked the reading. When she saw Elise, the present card hadn't changed. It was still the High Priestess indicating hidden secrets in her life, and that it would be in turmoil, which didn't make sense because everything felt okay. Elise explained that maybe it would make more sense later. The future alerted her to be on guard. She would soon need to escape from somewhere quickly, and she really needed to heed the advice. Elise felt the most important card was the one from the antique deck, the Chariot, which indicated that she should not hesitate. She had to own up to her resistance within, take charge of her life, make decisions, and take control of her relationships about romance. Sam had become so comfortable with having her around that he'd been getting forgetful. One evening he slipped into his computer freezer room after playing with Rita's feet, as he had become quite aroused. Rita entered the bedroom, wondering where Sam was, and she heard a chair slide inside the wall. She looked around, but she couldn't see anything. Then she noticed that the bookcase was on wheels, which she hadn't noticed before. She was sure someone was behind the wall, so later that evening she asked Sam if he wouldn't mind going to the shop to get some milk. Then she went into the room and moved the bookcase. There, behind the bookcase, she found a door, which she opened and went inside. At first, she thought the display cabinet was quirky and interesting, but then she touched it and realized it was a freezer. She opened the door, picked up one of the feet in the shoes, and instantly she knew something was off. She didn't know how he had acquired the feet in the shoes or what he'd been doing with them, but she knew what they were. She knew this was the warning, and she knew she had to get out of there as quickly as she could. Should she investigate further and call the police? No, she should just take a minute to think. She took a photo of the display cabinet and exited the room. Then, she heard Sam's car arrive outside and quickly returned the bookcase. She said she felt unwell and needed to go home when Sam entered. Rita gained her composure, explaining that she would go to bed and that she was sure she would be okay when he asked if she would like him to come with her to take care of her. That night Elise had another nightmare. She could see a horse and cart in flames, going over a cliff. She woke with a start and went to the kitchen to get a drink. There on the table next to the tin of antique cards was the Chariot card. She was puzzled because she was sure she had put them away as usual. So, she picked it up and put it back with the others. Later that night, Sam was getting ready for bed and went to say goodnight to his collection, as he so often did, when he noticed that the rollers on the bookcase weren't in the same position as he had left them. Rita had looked inside. He knew instinctively that she had. How could he have been so careless? Why would she wreck everything? He loved her. He went over to Rita's house in the dead of night, put his gloves on, rolled under her car, and severed the brake cable. Just enough so she could get a little way, but not far. He knew the route she took had a windy, steep decline. Rita decided to follow Sam the next day to find out what he was up to, before phoning the police. She hadn't gone far when she pulled over to look for her phone in her bag, then realized that she must have left it on a charge, which was unusual for her. She normally took it everywhere. Sam's car was just around the corner. He had been watching the house all morning waiting for Rita to go out. He started to follow her, staying a little way back so she wouldn't notice. Rita tried to brake as she began to go down the hill, but the brakes had failed. She tried taking every corner at increased speed, but eventually, the car flipped and rolled down the embankment. Sam stopped and hurriedly scrambled down the embankment before anyone could see. Rita was bleeding profusely from her head but was still breathing. But before he could finish her off, another car had stopped to help, and a guy had come running down the embankment. So Sam and the guy pulled Rita from the wreck just in time before the car ignited into flames. Sam felt helpless and desperate as the ambulance arrived and rushed Rita from the scene. He followed them to the hospital and waited till she was taken to the ICU. Then he sat outside her room. He told the nurses he was her brother and gave them a fake name, as Rita had no identification. After 24 hours of sitting and waiting desperate for news, they eventually informed Sam that the head trauma had been too severe and that life support would need to be turned off. He sat with her for a few moments while they turned it off. He felt very uncomfortable in this clinical setting. He knew he wouldn't be able to add her to the collection, and even though her feet were scarred, they belonged to the one person he had loved. He pulled up the bottom sheet and caressed her feet for the last time. The crash investigators were able to track her number plate and realized that they had the wrong name for the deceased, as they couldn't find the name given to the hospital anywhere in the databases. Once the police had broken the news to Rita's sister, she went to Rita's house. She saw Rita's phone in the bedroom charging and thought she would look at the pictures on her phone to see if there were any nice ones to remember her by. She was puzzled by the image she had seen. Were they real? Mary had an unsettling feeling in the pit of her stomach, so she took the phone to the police station. The officer she had given the phone to asked Eddie for his opinion on the image, to see what he could make of it. Eddie looked at the picture of the frozen feet, then swiped to see if there were more. It was then that he saw the image of the Chariot tarot card. Not another accidental death by tarot. And what was with that image of the shoes? Macabre artwork. Remember to like, subscribe, and share to others, so you don't miss an episode.